fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy, crime, LGBT, thriller.
You have now entered the House of Mystery with your hosts, Eric Shapiro, David North Martino, John Copenhaver, and Al Warren. Heard on KCAA 106.5 FM Los Angeles,
102.3 FM Riverside,
and 105.0 AM Palm Springs.
All right, you've made it back into the House Mystery. And now joining us, as we were talking about before, is the author of the new book, The Best New True Crime Stories, Serial Killers, Mitzi Szereto. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm actually the editor, but I'm also one of the authors in the book. So it's my baby, but I didn't write the whole thing.
It's your baby. So tell us about this. So you're the editor, so you basically have put together all the stories. How did you get on to doing this book, and what made you do this book?
Well, I've edited a lot of anthologies over the years in various genres, and I've done crime before, but I've done it in a fictional capacity. And I was just actually brainstorming on the phone with a publisher who I actually used to work with at another publishing house, and we were just talking about true crime, and obviously it's hot, which could be good and bad, because then, when everything, people tend to turn out a lot of content that may not be that high level. But, I said, yeah, I'd be up for, giving it a go and doing some true crime. And that's really how it came about.
So how did you choose who you were going to put in the book? Like, who was going to contribute to the book? Is there a method to this?
A method to my madness, you mean?
Yeah.
I disseminate my calls for submissions quite widely. I reach out all over the place to organizations, writers, etc. And for this book, I sort of did it half and half. I contacted some writers specifically who I knew of or have worked with in the past, and then I left the rest to chance. And it just really came together well. I mean, I'm just so pleased with the finished product. I'm so pleased with the stories and the quality of the book. And that's actually the first time I've reached out to so many people personally to be in the book. Normally I just maybe I might ask one person or two at the most. But, this, as I said, this was my debut true crime book, and I kind of wanted to have a little safety net, as it were.
Yeah. And here I thought I was special.
No,
you were. You are special.
I was going to say, you've got some good names, Lee Mellor, and some of these names, and all of a sudden you got Mike Browne. Like, my God,
who's that
you must
guy?
have had to fill some stuff.
Yeah, where did he come from? Yeah.
You needed some filler.
It must be those bullet holes in my window. That's what it was, why I had to put Mike in the book.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, it wasn't me.
Yeah.
So you know.
No, it was just Now, were you looking for specific topics, like certain serial killers that you wanted to talk about, like you say Ted Bundy and Dahmer and stuff like that? Did you have a list of these killers and then looked for people that would contribute on those killers, or was it just you were going to the contributor and then taking what they would want to write?
It was the latter. I did not have specific people in mind, other than the one that I chose to write for my own story. I didn't really want Bundy and Dahmer, and they're not in the book. I do reference them in the introduction, but I mean, I think, there's just so much on Bundy already that we're Bundied out. And I was interested in getting some cases that maybe are not so known to people, and as I usually do with my books, I like a really international group of people and an international bunch of content. That's what my sole purpose was, and it really worked out because there's some, I mean, we've hit pretty much every corner of the globe with the subjects in this book, and writers as well from every corner of the globe.
So what was the story that you wrote about? Like, what was it that you contributed?
I wrote a piece called The Monster of Quichibo, and it's about a Macedonian serial killer, and Vlado Tenesky, and he was a journalist, and he started to write about a serial killer in his small city that he lived in, and there was a modus operandi. It was all much older women. They were all like cleaning women, motherly types, not particularly educated, and they all seemed to live in the same neighborhood where Vlado Tenesky lived, and he actually knew these people himself, and he sort of became the main guy reporting about this serial killer case. But as I go through this story and provide information and evidence from all corners, it's never really been confirmed that he was the killer, and since he's dead, obviously it's sort of a done deal as far as really knowing for sure. I mean, it's assumed he was, but I do leave that question open.
Yeah, it's got to be tough when you do like something like that, a case something like that. How long does it take you to do a story like that?
I'll tell you, nonfiction is hard work. I mean, writing is hard work, but nonfiction I find particularly hair-raising because there's just so much. The research, the cross-checking of research. I mean, you could find information, but you need to make sure that information's correct. So, there's a lot of time spent looking up different things and making sure what you have is accurate. I worked quite a bit on my story. The book itself was quite time-consuming, but I had a specific deadline, so I worked long hours to get it done, and I worked a lot of hours on my story. I do actually have an undergraduate degree in journalism, so this kind of really did work for me. I kind of brought that back into play again, working in true crime.
Yeah, does that concern you now because of the way the internet has really blown up, that there's a lot of things out there and stories that aren't necessarily true, and it's harder to get good evidence, especially if you don't, search it out yourself?
Yeah. I mean, even on Tenesky, there was just things that, I definitely was checking into that. Everybody can have a blog and everybody can, post stuff. And, even you have that issue with Wikipedia. There's not necessarily, fact-based everything on there either. I remember in journalism school when they said, to research pieces, they said, please don't cite Wikipedia. And even, in just general university education, they say, don't use that as your sole source of research for a paper. So, multiply that 100 times or 1,000 times by all the true crime, bloggers and just people who are really interested in it putting information out, and it's like the Chinese whispers,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We found that actually, and a lot of times we've come across some writers that way too, that really base all their information off of that, off of a TV show,
You could get stuff from TV, but you can. There are some, TV, but of course, with TV, there's so much dramatization, and even something supposedly nonfiction has been heavily dramatized.
Oh, totally. I even one of the books I wrote, I did a show on oxygen, and they changed a lot of it, and not necessarily for the better. It was more about what was going to keep people entertained,
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, you can't. I always say you got to get two sources for everything.
As many sources you can ring out, and I'm kind of OCD on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm working on something right now for my next book, and I mean, the amount of sources that I have is taking up 2 pages of Word document to, where I'm finding my information and checking things out. It's crazy. And of course, if it's an obscure case, that makes it really tough.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, on something where people are already passed, how do you determine, like, when you get different sources, because you can have one person that's thought of as a criminal, and you can talk to 10 people about that person and get 10 total different perspectives. So when they're dead and you can't talk to them, how is it you put that, like, how do you decide which perspective you're going to take?
For me, I try to provide a really well-rounded perspective and perspective from several different people or sources because, I don't think it's really fair just to use one and then paint someone in a certain light when there could be other things. I mean, obviously with serial killers, I'm not saying these are wonderful guys and ladies in here, but, there's different things going on, and I try to provide that information so there's some understanding of who these people are, perhaps what made them do this, what other circumstances were going on in their lives, and repercussions, cultural, the effect on culture and society by their acts, that sort of thing. So something really well-rounded. And I think in journalism school, that's what I was taught to do, and that's really how I'm approaching this.
Yeah, I agree totally. I'm from that background myself. Who are some of your favorite writers or people that have influenced you? Of course, there's me. I know I'm probably your most favorite, but
help.
Besides me, no.
What a sledgehammer hint that was.
No, who would really influence you, like as a crime writer?
It's really hard to say because I was not a huge reader of true crime. But the odd thing is I actually recently wrote an essay called "Is True Crime Bad for You?" That is over at the Strand magazine. And I hadn't really thought that much about true crime or thought I was particularly interested in true crime. And then it occurred to me that I'd actually been consuming true crime from an early age, watching a lot of those news magazine shows on TV, docudramas, that sort of thing. And, they're primarily true crime stories. So I think that's something that was sitting on my shoulder all these years, and I didn't even realize it until recently.
So nothing really your favorite.
Well, actually, I mean, of course, one of the books I read was Ann Rule's book on Bundy because, I mean, that's just such an amazing book. The fact that she's tasked to write this book about a serial killer, not even realizing that the guy sitting in the office with her is the person who everyone's looking for. So, I mean, that is totally, what are the odds of that?
Great odds.
Well, maybe in your life.
Yeah, nowadays, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, what's your opinion on that then? Like when you say, is true crime good for you? Do you think it has a good influence on us as a society? Okay, go. Sorry. I was going to say, put this in context. Being where you live, I know you're in Canada and the U.S. probably a fair bit. There's two different angles there because in the U.S. you've got wide open. Everyone's true crime. There's so many shows. There's so much on the news. Nancy Grace sort of things going on. And in Canada, it's a lot more reserved. You don't hear near as much opinion about the crimes as you do in the U.S. So, so from the two different angles, do you think it's good being so open as the U.S.?
The one issue with the U.S. is there's always that this trying to put an entertainment spin on it is a bit disturbing. I think, for what I try to do is be more informational, giving people some perspective and some knowledge about what's behind all of this. And I think the analysis is something that we need to see more of. Sensationalism, I don't think, is really suitable, and some true crime is sensationalist, and that's something I definitely ran a mile from and did not want to have in my book. But, the U.S. is the U.S., and everything's always inflated 10 million times, and that's just the way it's been, and I doubt that's going to change.
Yeah, I try to do the same thing on my podcast. We are focused on the victim and the people around the crime to try and determine, what made this person tick, what happened afterward, how do people feel about these things. Those are things that kind of get lost in the quote-unquote murder porn world.
Oh.
Actually, that's exactly it. Murder porn. I mean, that is something that that I don't really think that's good. And in my piece that I wrote, I had kind of referenced that. I mean, but true crime is educational. It's a learning experience. One of the reasons I mentioned that women are big consumers of true crime, and a lot of them actually find this informative because it's sort of like a bit of a warning story, things that maybe they should be aware of, look out for. So it's educational in that regard as well. And let's face it, people are fascinated by this content. I mean, this is the darkest part of people's lives, especially serial killers. This is pretty dark stuff. And most of us can't really even conceive of this. So, of course, there's a fascination to try to understand what makes these people tick.
I just wonder, but when a person gets into a certain industry, like a person becomes a policeman, or a person becomes loss prevention in a store, and they start doing something for a number of years, they start to look at all people as what they're doing wrong. They're looking for something. Does that make sense? And so, if you're totally obsessed in true crime, are you not going to start looking at your neighbors like, oh, I wonder if she's missing. I haven't seen her for 2 days. Did he kill her? And does it start to make us a little bit more paranoid?
It could, but then on the other hand, maybe that person who hasn't been seen in a couple of days, there's a reason why they haven't been seen, and maybe people do need to kind of be aware of what's going on around them. So, it's a double-edged sword, really.
Yeah, so Mike, where is Carol?
She's at work.
Oh, sure. So now, and it's put it to Mike there for a sec. I know you're kind of on the co-host seat, but what story did you choose, and why did you choose that story to be put into the book?
I chose the story of Clifford Olson, our local Surrey-based serial killer here, and because it's local to me, and also when I was a young person, a man tried to abduct me and do bad things to me, and it was exactly the time around Clifford Olson's reign of terror. So it's a really personal story to me, and I have a lot of emotional investment in it. So that's something that I've always wanted to write about. I've done a couple of episodes on our show about it, but I was so happy when Mitzi contacted me and I could finally get it out of me, kind of thing.
Yeah, and now you're doing some more writing, Mike. So this question will be for both of you. So, is it important to put your emotional tie to the story when you write it, or how I should say it? Is it important to have that in the story?
It depends on the story, really. If I really do have a connection to it, I'm going to mention it. But if I don't feel, I'm always going to write it from a human perspective. I'm going to try and figure out how, what the heck made this person want to do these kind of things, and what was the victim feeling at the time. So there's always that human aspect, but not necessarily about me at all.
And what about you, Mitzi?
Well, fortunately, I don't have an experience like that in my life, but there are stories in the Best New True Crime Story Serial Killers book that are first person. I have a piece written by Danuta Kot, who is a crime writer in the UK, and she tells a story about how living in Sheffield, it was at the time of the Yorkshire Ripper, Peter Sutcliffe, and she has a very creepy anecdote about how she was followed on her way home one evening, and it's very likely that the person who was following her was Peter Sutcliffe, and she managed to get away from him. But then the killings started to happen after that. So there are first person accounts in here. There's another piece by a Native American writer, Marcy Rendon, who lived in Minneapolis in the mid-'80s, and there was a serial killer targeting Native women in her community. And she knew people she knew some of the victims and spoke to people who were there at the time. So there are, obviously, like I said, there's representations of people whose lives were affected personally by these killers, not just people who are writing about them, from the safety of, say myself.
Yeah. Are you happy with how it came out, the whole overall project?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty thrilled with it. I mean, I always want to have my books be as good as they can possibly be, but this exceeded my expectations. And what really makes me thrilled is the fact that this is my first true crime book, and that it came out this well, and I got so many quality stories and stories that actually have something to say, something that you're going to take away with you and make you think. And that's what I wanted to do, and I think that I achieved that. And so far from the feedback I'm getting, I seem to get people agreeing. And I'm not giving them money to agree with me.
No. Oh, that's great. No, so did you plan on doing more then? Or are you going to keep this format up, or are you going to jump into something different?
I'm actually working on a new book, The Best New True Crime Stories, Small Towns.
Oh,
so
cool.
It is another anthology. Yeah, it's another anthology, like the serial killers one, but this is going to be true crimes that have happened in small towns, and small towns around the world, not just, what we think of as small towns, such as, in North America, but it'll be international in scope, and again, quality stories, things that'll make you think, things that you may, cases you may be familiar with, and some you may never have heard of. So it'll be pretty much along the same lines. So if you like this, I think you'll like that.
I can't wait to read that one.
Good.
Now, sometimes do you get a story, and maybe you got one for this book?
Mine.
Which totally shocked you, like it was totally.
By how bad it was, mine.
Yeah, totally, as in the story itself, as in you get a story and you just can't believe what happened in the story. Like you just sort of, it stays with you. Have you had one of those, or did you put one of those in the book?
Well, there's several that are pretty far out there. I mean, the Rat Man is pretty far out there. It's about a serial killer in Japan who is a pedophile and a cannibal and a necrophiliac. And it's a pretty heinous. I mean, serial killers are not, like I said, people that are lovely people is a general rule. But this character is way out there on the spectrum of horrible. Mm. So, I mean, that was quite a shocking one. And, of course, that had to be dealt with carefully because, I mean, especially you're dealing with children as the victims, and, writers have to sort of be aware of what they're writing and not sensationalize it. And so, yeah, the Rat Man's definitely on the top of the list for that.
Do you feel that there's rehabilitation option for serial killers, or is it once you're a serial killer, always a serial killer?
Well, there's actually a story in the book that opens that question up. I'll give you my answer first, and then I'll just reference that story. But I just don't think there's rehabilitation. I think there's a line that someone crosses, and you just cannot come back from it. And that's not just for serial killers. There's other things that are in that category. But no, I don't think you can rehabilitate a serial killer. With regard to the story that I mentioned, there's a piece in here called "The Quiet Man in the Overalls Struggled to Be Heard" by Stephen Wade, who's a British writer, and it's about Dennis Nilsen, who was a serial killer in the London area, London, England, and he targeted men. He would, they would come home with him or whatever, and he kind of they nicknamed him that he kills for company, because he just wanted company, and if people just came over for sex, it's sort of signed their death warrant. But this piece, the writer was a writer in prisons, and Nilsen was in his writing class. And he talks quite a bit about does prison work, and would it work for someone like Nilsen, and how Nilsen had even written an autobiography and he wanted to see it published and all of this. So, there's quite a lot of interesting commentary on that whole issue about serial killers. Can they be, is prison going to work for them, or are these people just basically wanting to kind of be rock stars in a way, like serial killers, and if they want to write about their crimes and write about their lives, isn't it just they want to see some sort of glorification of what they've done?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But this is why I won't cover the Luca Magnotta case on my podcast, because he's a notorious narcissist who loves the fact of his name in the media. So I won't give it to him at all.
Yeah, well, narcissism's mentioned in quite a number of stories regarding the specific serial killers, that they are narcissists, and there's a piece about let me just look this up really quick. The Man in Black and the Silver Screen: The Life and Crimes of Peter Moore. Peter Moore was a serial killer in Wales. And there's mention in the story, Mark Friars is the writer, there's mention about how in court, Peter Moore was acting like some sort of film star, coming in like, hey, here I am, and even contacting victims' families and completely insane things like that. And it was just, like his little glory. We've all seen all the footage from Bundy, and you look at him there in the courtroom, and he's loving it. He's loving it.
Oh,
and then
every
he has
moment.
his groupies are there too. These insane women who seem to find something about him that So yeah, narcissism's a big part of it.
Almost like a cult figure in a way. Charles Manson. Do you think that the death penalty should be in or not?
I'm quite liberal in my views, but I think there are some things the death penalty, why are we keeping these people around and feeding them and housing them and giving them health care and dental care and TVs and gyms to work out in? There's just a line you cross, and I don't know, why keep them around?
Yeah. Well, actually, I agree. And some of them seem to have so many liberties, It's just crazy. Tex Watson, from the Manson family, has his own website, and it just kind of goes beyond what they should have.
Yeah, Son of Sam is the same.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Jodi Arias tweeting people.
Well, we got a lot of people doing tweeting that they shouldn't be doing tweeting, so I won't say anything else. But
I don't know what you're
got
talking
one
about. You people are being mean.
I have no idea.
We got one narcissist that's doing too much. Take away that Twitter. So that's funny, but social media, is that going to change the way our serial killers behave, do you think, in the future? Is this going to incorporate in their behavior?
Well, I mean, are they supposed to even have access to this stuff? I mean, I thought they're not supposed to be allowed to use social media or have Facebook pages or any of this kind of thing.
Oh, in America, you can do anything in America.
Yeah, that's true.
Just,
That's true.
Apparently, Clifford Olson, the guy I wrote about, had a MySpace page that people were keeping updated for him. Yeah, that was before Facebook.
Some people need something productive to do. I think that is not one of the things.
No.
Well, and sort of what I mean too, like even the ones that are out that are not caught. Like you had Luca Magnotta, we talked briefly about, as in he was really big on creating several profile and Facebook fake accounts and liking himself. So do you think it's going to incorporate in the way people actually behave as killers before they get caught? Are they going to start using it?
I wouldn't be surprised. No, I mean, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, that's with social media is here and it's not going to go away. So it stands to reason.
We've already seen people live streaming suicide. It's just a matter of time before we have a serial killer doing his thing. And also the guy in New Zealand, he live streamed his whole murder spree in the
yes,
Yeah. Wow. Well, that'll be the next book you can do is just start doing spree killers and mass shooters, and there's just no end.
No, there isn't. I mean, the book I'm currently working on it will have some of those cases in the piece that I'm writing. I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to give it away, but it is someone who is in that category.
As somebody who comes from a small town, there was a murder in my town back in Nova Scotia, not so recently, probably about 12 years ago now, where a mother murdered her daughter, her 12-year-old daughter, and it ripped the town apart, watching all this happen. It's a very rare thing in such a small place for those things to happen, so it's going to be really interesting to read your next offering for sure.
Well, I mean, I think it will. I agree. I mean, that's the thing, because, small towns you just don't think of necessarily as the places where all these things happen, but there's a lot of things going on in small towns. Bad things.
I know. Yeah, I was surprised. Have you seen that one on Skidmore, where they shot the guy in the truck?
Yeah.
He was the bully. You remember that? That was on Netflix. Since then, there's been several killings in the town.
Oh, wow. And a similar way?
No, different ways. And in fact, we're going to have Diane Fanning on next week because there was one of the most crazy murders that happened in Skidmore, and there's been several since. And you're just going to freak out when you hear about what's been going on in that town.
It's going to curl my hair.
What?
I think Mike's heard everything by now.
Just about.
Yes, just about. He's heard a lot. He sits here with me. Well, here we go. Well, this has certainly been interesting. Do you have a website or a place that people can come and contribute stories or say hi to you, or how do you offer?
Yeah, of course. I have my website, MitziSeretto.com, and that I also am on Twitter, and I do not tweet superfluously either, and I have a Facebook page. So people can find me at those places, and they could even message me at those places. And obviously, I list my writers' calls for submission. I do have that at my website, so there's a tab with that. I've got 2 weeks left for final submissions. If people are interested, they better find out now and start writing.
Oh, boy. Get it in there now.
Yeah, because, I mean, I have picked some stories. There's still room, but, we're getting down to the wire. So.
Wow. Well, there you go. Get on it, Mike.
I'm writing.
I think Mike's got some other top secret project going on.
Oh, there's nothing top secret about it.
No, I don't.
Yeah. No, it is. It's true. It's top
At
secret.
some point, we're going to do a book signing here locally as well.
I hope so. If they get it rescheduled, we had with this crazy weather. It was supposed to be this weekend, so that's been postponed. There is going to be a book signing in Seattle on February 1st at Elliott Bay Book Company. Mike unfortunately can't make that, but I will be there, and I'm not sure. There might be a contributor or two if they can manage to get in town. We'll see closer to that date, and hopefully the weather will be favorable.
I really wish I could go, but I've got, there's Fan Expo here, and we've been invited to do a live show there, so.
Okay, I'll forgive you this time, but don't let it happen again.
Okay.
Yeah, he's in demand.
Yeah, well, hey, you can't fight it.
No, we gotta get him an agent.
This too shall pass, I'm sure. I'm just a fleeting thing.
Your 15 minutes is already down to 14 and a half.
Oh, totally.
I fell asleep during mine, so. Well, I really appreciate it. It's been entertaining, and we're glad that you came on the show. And the book will be on the website, so anybody that is listening can just do one click, pick up the book. And it's the best new true crime stories and serial killers. Mitzi Szereto, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
To find out more about our show, guests, or to listen to past shows from our archive, please go to www.houseofmysteryradio.com.
The mission has been completed.
The end! By George, he's got it! It is the end!
I'll see you.
If you're lying to me, I'll be back.
This has been a production of Something Weird Media.